Kia ora and welcome to our November meeting, and significantly the first ordinary meeting of the Trilenium. I would like to ask Councillor Matty Anderson to begin our proceedings with a karakia, please.
Whakalofa atu ki Matulusi. I'm going to open up with Leongi in Niuean. Ko ha matua matua haha hilangi, o le atua matua mamatua, whawhunga mai ki he whataputuputuanga nei hau motulu, whakamonuina mai o motulu ke hako moi tonu e te ngāhua, hako e hingoa tapu a iso koriso, ko motulu a iki, amene. And that is our Lord, our Father in heaven, we ask to look down on our gathering here with your blessings that we may do and say what is right in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thanks, Matty. A special welcome to our youth councillor, Scout Proctor-Thompson. Wonderful to have you here. The challenge we give all our youth councillors, if you can find somewhere in the agenda of which we could hear the wisdom from youth. I've received no apologies. It's my intention to take the order of business as set out in the agenda. Are there any special interests that anybody would like to declare specifically relating to today's agenda? That being the case, I will move to public forum and would like to invite Rosaline Singh from the Hindu community of Nelson to come before the council. Join the seats. You have 5 minutes to present at public forum. We'll just... Welcome, Rosalind, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to come forward with our committee. On behalf of our Shri Durga Vedic Sanatan Ramayana Bhagwat Mandal, I am writing to express our strong commitment and establishment of our Hindu temple in our religion. Our Mandal has been serving the Hindu community in this area for several years, organizing regular status bhajan, cultural program, and community service event. Each year, we observe all our major Hindu festivals and occasions together, fostering unity, division, and cultural connections among our members and our Vedic committee. This gathering brings people all ages and backgrounds together in joy of respect and spiritual reflection. We are fortunate to have our own spiritual guide, Swamiji, Sri Ishar Das Viveki, presenting here in Nelson. With his respect, the temple will be properly maintained and guided in accordance of Hindu values and traditional, ensuring closest and ongoing spiritual care. We already have several idols in our session with additional deities currently being prepared and sent from India, reflecting from deep dedication from this vision, and regions begin once suitable funding and support are available. Shri Durga Vedic Sanatan Ramayana Bhagwat Mandal humbly seeks the council's support and partnership to help this vision in reality. With fortunate funding, with guidance, we are prepared to lead the development of the temple will serve as last center of spirituality, culture, and community well-being in our religion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Did your colleagues wish to add any further comment to your presentation?
I'm in Nelson last 20 years. Sometimes people come here as well and they ask, have you got any more temple? People like to spend time in a temple, do some praying thing, good for health, mentality, good for stress, and we don't have anything, and we hope you guys consider to get temple here.
Thank you. just from the chair, the relationship between Nelson, New Zealand and India is growing, as is our Indian population. Just yesterday, I met with members of the New Zealand forest industry that are part of a trade delegation leaving tomorrow. I'm leaving today, in fact, for India as part of that relationship. I'm going to ask Matty Anderson to ask a question, but my response from the chair would be to invite Matty, who we are proposing today to appoint as our liaison councillor for our Pacific and ethnic communities, to have a further dialogue with you on your presentation today. Matty, a question.
Thanks. I need to apologise. We've been trying to organise a dinner for a very long time now, but it's just been a bit crazy. So a few questions. I'm wondering, just clarity, did you say you're getting some quite significant spiritual items sent over and they would need to be placed somewhere that has a certain amount of mana? And the other one, how large is the community? And third question, your events, how many of these are open to the wider public?
Okay, so all our committee have contributed to bring this to New Zealand, and that one, we want a space to be put an end. So it's currently we are running at our home as a small temple, which is not enough space. So we want a little bit bigger space, no matter anywhere it's been approved, so that all our committee, not only our committee, but all the religion, they are most welcome to join us. And also that to see our culture and celebrate it together. And there is some restrictions, like we do not get any alcohol in our committee, and there is no meat. It's pure vegetarian, and whatever it's celebrated is by a Hindu calendar from India that whole over world is celebrating. So that's our restrictions. But all other things is been open and it's written. Everyone probably had a copy. So hopefully that works out. Thank you.
Thanks, Matty.
Okay.
One further question from Mel. I've had from the previous term some negative comments that I'm too loose around public forum and allowing too many questions. So I'm going to set myself a rule for this term of only two wherever possible. But happy to take feedback from councillors. But I did get a little bit of that, so now will be it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Nick. And thank you for coming along this morning and presenting so well to us. Is the Hindu community growing in Nelson?
Yes, we do. Yes.
And what is the number at the moment?
We have, when we started, it was only 3 people to start singing bhajan. Then came number of 5. Now we are 80 people. But some of them, they're still wanting to know, because sometimes we celebrate at multicultural hall and sometimes we celebrate it at our place. So people get confused that where we can go in. When they come to our place, we can't open to the public to come at our place because we don't have enough room. But when it's larger, like big festivals, for example, Diwali and Shivaratri, like we did sent like a parade for Indian committee, it was in multicultural hall, so everyone came together. But people like to come all our celebration, which is multiple celebration for the year, we can, because we have to pay for the multicultural hall, and then when we come to our place, it's still smaller, so it's confusing for the public to get together. So it is growing, so we want them to come over and celebrate, but we need a space for it.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your presentation. I am going to invite Councillor Anderson to continue a dialogue with you with respect to your presentation to us today. And it's wonderful of you to take the time for us to not just hear your presentation, but also to understand the growing demographic of our Indian community in Nelson. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'd now like to invite Lindsay Wood and Peter Ollenshaw on behalf of the Nelson Tasman Climate Forum for their presentation. Welcome, Lindsay and Peter.
We've got some slides here. Sorry. Morena, returning Mayor Nick Smith, returning councillors, and kia ora to new councillors, Lisa Austin, Nigel Skeggs. See, Sarah is not here at the moment. Thank you for allowing us to speak on behalf of the Climate Forum and on how we might meet Nelson's recently adopted carbon emissions targets. This is what a group of us have worked on to come up with and present with you today. And the good news is that although we can't rely on them alone, some of these reductions will happen anyway, and a number of other measures will come at a negative cost to the council. So here's the target. Noted only gives us a 50% chance of meeting the 1.5 degrees Paris target. And it doesn't include biogenic methane from wastewater landfills or ruminant livestock. Here's an updated breakdown of Nelson's regional emissions. This is provisional, but it's 72% transport. So transport massively predominates our regional emissions. 3/4 of our emissions come from road vehicles, a little bit from aviation, a little bit from the fishing boats, and a little bit from off-road with diggers and things, but 3/4 from road vehicles. How much from trucks? Only 8%, same as diesel buses. Cars are almost half our emissions, and that's not counting double cab utes. I mentioned that some of our emission reductions are going to happen anyway. We've now got price parity with fossil fuels 5 years ahead of time. And changing from diesel to PHEV results in a massive emission reduction, even if it's not zero. And heavy trucks and off-road four-wheel drive in EV form are arriving. This is the Geely four-wheel drive double cab ute. Yes, it can tow a 3-ton trailer and carry a ton in the tray and can wade deeper water than a Ford Ranger. Sorry. And these come with other compelling advantages, such as being able to run a building site, a welder from socket outlets in the tray. Over to you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Peter. Greetings to all the people. It's lovely to see familiar faces, lovely to see some new faces. And I'd like to especially acknowledge Scout, your youth councillor, who's a wonderful neighbour of mine. I'm going to present two things to you. I'm going to give you a very quick snapshot of a tool we've developed to help develop pathways to how we might reduce our emissions in according with the targets Peter's mentioned. And I also want to make a big plug for the importance of getting community on board by escalating our strategies on that. Now, I'm just, sorry, Peter, which is the right click? Why isn't it? Okay, here's this quickly looking at the tool. On the left, I'm not going to talk the detail, but that's what we call our input dashboard. It's got 17 different variables, and the column of numbers there allows you to enter different levels of input for each of the strategies. And the combined effect of those is reflected in the output dashboard on the right, starting in 2025 on the left, and the grey progressively stepping down, the grey being the emissions we've got to reduce, trying to get down to that target line, the black line, by 2030. We were very keen to make sure it wasn't just one sweet spot that was a way of doing that. So we've actually run a number of different scenarios, and here are three. The left-hand column of numbers shows just an average across-the-board uptake. The central column shows if we downplay the commercial uptake and emphasize private, and the right-hand one is the flip side of that for commercial. And these three graphs, each of them reflect those three options. At a glance, they all look the same. And the point is that there are big differences in the input data that achieves them. So the takeaways there are we've got, yes, we can get the emissions down. 2, we've got more than one pathway to do that, several pathways, and this is just a few. And 3, that we need an integrated suite of activities to do that. And then you're going to say, well, how much does all of that cost? And we've done a bit of an analysis there. The blue cells on the right are ones that are really almost no cost to the council. The council is a catalyst that doesn't need to fund them. The green ones are ones where there is a modest funding, and in particular, the council becomes a key player in them happening. And then the lilac ones are ones where there is a significant investment that maybe you'd think of making sure you got into the next long-term plan and so on. I just want to quickly say this week, the government timing wise has adopted the time of use charging for peak hour traffic and so on, and that's a very useful strategy. And so I thumbs up for that. Now, I said I wanted to talk about the importance of community engagement. All over the world, this massive research shows that the public wants more climate action. I wrote that before I knew you had the community survey landing in your agenda today, which says exactly the same thing. Yet I also know that politicians are afraid of public backlash if they adopt strong enough policies. Again, the survey is saying we want you to go down this journey. A game changer in this is getting citizens up to speed a lot better than we have in the past and other places have in the past. Getting strong citizen buy-in is critical. There are lots of citizen-friendly ways where they can learn more about climate and so on. I really urge this council to have a visible and a visionary leadership presence in its community on the council journey. And I think we've all heard about citizens' assemblies. I've listed a few there, which are proving to be remarkable in bridging this gap between not wanting to do stuff and realizing how important it is. Finally, a quick look at the timeline, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the blue line there is the current annual plan we're working under. The green line is the annual plan that's being developed for adoption next year, and then the brown at the bottom is the coming long-term plan. If, for example, one of your strategies was to say we want to fill the gaps in the cycling network, and Peter will talk a little about that, then we have to think, where are we going to start and finish? We're starting at the end of 2025 at the top left, and at the middle of 2027, we want to be ready to go on filling these cycle network gaps. And those arrows show the sort of chain of events that have to happen in order for that to happen. So, for example, you need to be getting that into the annual plan, I suggest, if you want to get it in the long-term plan. Back to you, Peter.
As Lindsay said, you've got this long-term plan coming up. One thing we suggest is to make low-carbon commuting the most attractive option. So implementing congestion charges, as Lindsay's talked about, the legislation passed this week. But next, encourage urban intensification as a transport solution. This is partitioning that you may have seen an email from me about. Implement peripheral parking charges. This is in the parking strategy. This is Grove Street. You can see all those cars parked there and people walking into town for free. Implement time limits on weekday parking and reserves. Fix gaps in the cycle network. Priority ones here shown in red. The Netherlands is often put forward as an example of what's possible with active transport, but most people in Holland aren't cyclists. They simply bike for a lot of their journeys because it's the quickest, most convenient and most enjoyable means to getting from A to B. The litmus test here is women and kids. If it's not attractive to them, you've failed. And it's not a zero-sum game. The best place to bike is also the best place to drive. Making cycling an attractive option does not mean making driving bad. Quite the opposite. Attracting people away from car commuting means less congestion for your trucks, Lisa, for tradies. Thank you. Over to questions.
Okay, take a couple of questions. Aaron? Councillor Stallard, sorry.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for your presentation. You touched on, I think, an important aspect, which is taking the community with us. Is there any more you can share about your ideas now? And you mentioned the resident survey, and we know that, and Citizens Assembly, this is all part of it, and it's important for Bridge to Better and Plan Change 29 or something. If you're taking your ideas any further than what you've shown today.
Yeah, but thank you, Councillor Stallard. I think there are two or three things there. First of all, they're not particularly my ideas, but we happen to be a if you like, a gathering point for a whole lot of different ideas. One is it's widely acknowledged that community level of awareness of the climate issues is not great, and therefore we need to help our community raise their level of awareness, and a whole lot of activities. If you go back to the slide that I showed, listed things like it might be anything from having guest speakers to exhibitions to lunchtime talks and so on. I think also the council could have a really proactive news presence, but whether it's in our Nelson or some other way that keeps pushing this. I think the council needs to signal this is a really important journey we have to get on. So that's point one. But in terms of citizens' assemblies, I think one of the things is, and it's well acknowledged that councillors and mayors and government politicians run a bit scared of putting the really hard policies out there, not because they don't believe in them, but because they think they won't get voted back in next time. It's a bit of a mantra about that. The likes of citizens' assemblies offer a very robust way of bridging that gap, because I won't go into the mechanics of them now, but they allow a large group of citizens to become very well informed and work hard to achieve a robust view of things. For example, Auckland Water is a good example, where the engineers thought our best option is to recycle water in the future, but they thought that the electorate will never wear that. They went to a citizens' assembly, worked through the options, and what did they find? The Citizens' Assembly said, we think recycling water is the best bet. So that came from the citizens. There are many other cases. I'll just touch on congestion charging in Stockholm. There's a great little video clip you can see where they had great resistance. They had 70% resistance from their population for imposing congestion charging. They agreed they'd do a 6-month trial. They did a 6-month trial and then reviewed with the public, and 70% said, let's keep it. So to some extent, we're our own worst enemies, being slow and moving. But when we get the chance to have an informed comment and decision, often we land on the right place.
Excellent. Any further question? Councillor Anderson.
Just in and around citizens' assembly, so you're quite right, it's a little bit scary to hand over that power and decentralise. As far as participatory democracy is concerned, there are more tools in that than just citizens' assemblies, is that right?
Yes, there are, Councillor Anderson. Citizens' Assembly is probably the best known of them. For example, there's a digital version called Poll Lists, which was developed in Taiwan. Taiwan is reckoned to have one of the least divisive political cultures in the world. And that's an online one, which suits a lot of people getting engaged. My colleague in the forum, Joanna Santa Barbara, who many of you know, has done quite a deep dive on some of that. So, yes, thanks for making that point. It's not just citizens' assemblies.
Again, thank you for your work and your presentation. I particularly enjoyed the additional information about the transport emissions and the opportunity around EVs, of which you'll know my own personal passion for driving change. So on behalf of Council, thank you again both for your work and for your informative presentation this morning.
Kia ora, Mayor Nick.
I now come to item 5.1 on the agenda, which is the confirmation of our inaugural meeting on the 30th of October. I'm going to move from the chair the adoption of those minutes. Councillor Pakipaki has indicated support for seconding. Is there any concern about those minutes? That being the case, I'll put those. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. That's carried.
Excuse me, Nick.
Sorry, Councillor Skeggs.
Just to go back to the interest, sorry, it isn't confidential, so I was holding, but if I can just have a conflict in 1.1 in confidential, and I'll be standing outside the room.
I understand that and was happy to take that at the beginning of the confidential. It's quite difficult to respect the confidentiality of business, and also to declare an interest. Thanks for your caution, and I'll make sure that it is noted when we come to the confidential agenda. Much appreciated, Councillor Skeggs. We come to item 6.1 on the agenda, which is my report on establishing the governance structure for the term ahead. I want to thank the Deputy Mayor for the consultation I've had with him in developing it, and also the significant amount of feedback from colleagues since our workshop on how we structure ourselves to deliver the very best for the community over the next 3 years. I have to say I found it quite challenging in the sense that people who are elected to council are ambitious. They want to do a whole lot of things, and I need to be honest and say that I have not been able to satisfy every one of the wishes of the team in putting this governance structure together. But equally, I am confident that it is a recommended structure that will enable us to get the very best out of Nigel and our staff team and serve our community well. There are two significant changes from the last term in the governance structure that I am proposing. The first of those is that the 4 or 3 new, as well as finance, audit and risk oversight committees. I think it is a fair reflection on the last term that we need more opportunities for elected members to be able to scrutinise and be satisfied on the delivery by our governance team. The Chief Executive on Monday made very significant changes to the structure of council, and I particularly want to acknowledge KJ Dillon, who joins us as an Executive Director. And for those that have not noticed, the new titles of our new Executive Directors from Corporate Services and Alec from Delivery, that reflects the changes that the Chief Executive is putting in place. I want to restate my high level of confidence in the changes that the Chief Executive is making. It would be easy for a Chief Executive to sit back and just leave things the way they are. It would be a safer route for him. But we have asked him to make the Nelson City Council the highest performing organisation possible. We share our ambition to be the best council in the country. We might not achieve it, but we're going to shoot for that. And in making the governance recommendations, I take a view that we are one team, elected members and staff, and for that reason am aligning the governance structure with the delivery, with the customer services, with the strategy and planning, and the finance corporate structure, so that that will support us working as one team. The second significant change in the governance structure that I'm recommending is the most important function we have as elected members is being good representatives for our community. Our job alongside the 300 odd staff that Nigel employs is to be as connected and engaged with our community and to bring this table as effectively as we can the wide range of views that exist in our community. Now, in the last term, I had a significant level of grumpiness, particularly from the Tahunanui and Nelson North areas, and took a punt to establish liaison councillors, roles that were performed by Campbell Rollo and Aaron Stallard. I've had very positive feedback from the community in the way in which that worked. I extended the model with Councillor Hodgson taking up the role in Atify, and in these recommendations is the proposal for there to be a liaison councillors geographically for all of the communities across Nelson. It is not intended in any way to stop any member of the public contacting any councillor or any councillor engaging with any member of the community. But here's the problem I'm seeking to address. Each one of us have got a job of trying to represent over 53,000 people, over 6,000 businesses, over 500 community organisations. It's actually really hard. And the risk if we don't coordinate it is that we leave gaps of some people not being heard or that we overlap in our work. The idea about these liaison councillors is for a first point of call, I'm a member of the public, I've got a concern in my community of, for instance, Stoke, if I'm unsure about who do I go to, who can I go to? And it is intended in that way. And equally, it's just not practical for our staff. If you've got an issue going on in an area of our community, to invite all 13 elected representatives along, and this enables the staff team to be able to say, well, actually, Councillor Brand is very well connected with that Stoke community. They'll have a chat with her and make sure that we're getting governance input in terms of how we might handle that particular issue. I do want to just highlight from the circulated agenda a number of refinements that I'm proposing in the resolutions today. The first of those is I got feedback from a number of councillors and some council staff that the initial names given to those geographic areas didn't sit very easily with the community. So, for instance, I was proposing a Stoke East and West, and I was proposing a Nelson West as well. They are not terms that have previously been used, and I think it was a good suggestion to actually use the names that people would more commonly use for those areas. That has involved some indulgence from Councillor Courtney, and so I am proposing to add an area of the Port Hills. It fits very easily with Councillor Courtney because I'm also proposing him to lead the work around the major waterfront project. That is the community that is going to be most affected. It'll be one of the biggest projects that I hope we can make progress on this term. And can I thank Councillor Courtney for allowing that refinement, which enables me to name more logically the areas. And so the change is to refer to the area I'm proposing to Matty, to refer to it as Nelson South, and to refer to the areas of Stoke and Nayland Monaco of effectively being the east and west areas. The second change is I had representations from Councillor Kirby, and that was that she had a passion for sport, and that I do think there is a challenge for our community to ensure that our sporting facilities equally serve the 50% of our population that are women. I have huge admiration for the work that Campbell Rollo has done with the sports community, but I have decided in that instance to appoint two people to that sports liaison role. Both Councillor Rollo and Councillor Kirby have spoken to them both, and they're very committed to working to each other. And so that is a refinement from the original proposal. The third refinement is in discussions with Councillor Austin. She had an ambition and strong interest around the tourism and hospitality sector and wished to step up into that role. And so I've refined and moved to 4 business liaison roles, with tourism and hospitality a liaison role being allocated to Councillor Austin. The oversight, and it was simply an administrative mistake, during the last term of council, we had Rohan lead the relationship with LGNZ. I think we spend of the order of about $90,000 in our membership of LGNZ. There has been some debate around this council table about whether LGNZ has been as connected with its councils as it needs to be. I've had a discussion with Councillor Skinner. He's a senior councillor, and I think he is very well suited to that role. I don't have a wish. I spent too many of my 31 years as a parliamentarian travelling all over the country, but it is my intention for Councillor Skinner to be our representative both on the rural and provincial group of Local Government New Zealand, also on the Zone 5, which is the top half of the South Island, and also inherent in that LGNZ role is often they're involved in the relationship government. There are big reforms, RMA, there's talks of rates capping, and for him to be engaged with LGNZ effectively on ensuring that we get good value for money for the ratepayer, for our contribution to LGNZ, that we maximise the opportunity to use that forum for us to be able to engage with government And can I thank Councillor Skinner for taking on that role? It should have been in the original papers, but was simply an oversight. Can I just reinforce, as a consequence of feedback from colleagues, in the recommendations is very deliberately the recommendation that we will review this governance structure in 12 months' time. So next November, it's my intention to have a fresh look. It is not my intention, and I know of some mayors in other parts of the country have appointed peoples to roles and said that in 12 or 18 months' time, those roles end and I'm going to make reappointments. That is not my approach. My approach is that the appointments that I've announced are intended for the full 3-year term, albeit that review in 12 months' time is intended for us just to have a good open discussion about whether these systems are working. I think the biggest challenge is for us to make those oversight committees work well for the staff team, but also work well for the elected members and the community that we have to serve. The last point I'd make, the resolutions that I am proposing today with the Deputy Mayor roll over the terms of reference from the previous term for those that are continuing. The reason for that is there is work, for instance, the Deputy Mayor is wanting to get stuck in and make progress on city revitalisation, and we need to roll over those terms of reference so that we can get started on that work. But it is my intention at the December meeting to bring through the terms of references for all of the 8 governance bodies we're setting up, the 4 task forces and the 4 oversight committees. The last part is I note in the paper the joint committees with the Tasman District Council. I've had a preliminary chat with Mayor King. We are intending to make some change in that area. Firstly, with respect to Saxton Field, and I want to note the logic behind that. I can still remember standing in the Saxton Field with Mayor Marshall, then the Mayor of Tasman, and Mayor Malone, and there was a fair amount of tension in the air. And as a consequence, a decision was made back in the late 1980s to have an independent chair. I'm pleased to say that the relationship between Tasman and Nelson is much better today, and that I don't think there is a need for an independent chair. And so we are effectively in the resolutions proposing to standardise that committee alongside the ones that we have for wastewater, for sewage business unit, for the landfill and for the others, and to have a elected member as the chair of Saxton Field. I've had some preliminary discussions with the Mayor of Tasman along the lines of establishing a new joint bodies in the area of climate change and building consenting. In the area of both building consenting and in respect of Harbour Master, there is an active discussion going on to extend the joint services. In the course of the next month, it is my intention to come back in consultation with Tasman with the recommendations of both the membership and also the terms of reference for those. Consistent with that relationship, it is intended that the chairs of those committees will be roughly 50-50 between Nelson and Tasman, recognising the equal relationship. And if there is to be a chair from Nelson, it's intended that the deputy chair would be from Nelson and vice versa in that relationship that we want to keep on a very equal and respectful basis going forward. I hope that gives some overview to the governance structure that myself and Pete are recommending. It is my intention, after the opportunity for questions, to move their adoption with Pete seconding, and then to enable a debate on the governance structure being proposed for the Trilium ahead. So for clarity, more than happy as the proposer of the paper to take any questions, and then I'll make provision for a debate for people to be able to express their view. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Nick. For the He Tātai Whetū strategy, we've carried over the terms of reference. And part of that kaupapa was to stand up the Arts Development Agency. It was basically one of their main jobs in terms of reference, and that's already been done. The question is, be possible to revisit their terms of reference, maybe meet with ADA and figure out, because I don't want us to be doubling up on stuff if we're not subject matter experts. So question, I want to update their terms of reference with the He Tātou Whetū Task Force and strategy.
And the answer is absolutely. The only reason for just rolling over the terms of reference today is so that you can meet. And I would welcome your input and the input of the other members on refining those terms of reference. I've been advised we have an additional little challenge. Te Tatu Whetū specifically referred to your old terms of reference. I've received some advice from Pania that you may also need to review the name, the Te Reo name at the same time. So I'd welcome your input into that. If I was to give you a steer around my views of the terms of reference, Council has signalled an ambition for this city to be recognised by the United Nations as a city of crafts. I'd like your terms of reference to refer to that. That's a very ambitious plan. Secondly, the development of the Arts Hub that we announced last week and was agreed by the previous term. There's a really important challenge to maximise the benefits for the community from that significant investment. And so I'd like the Arts Task Force to have the oversight of ensuring that that is effectively delivered. I would also like the terms of reference to be sufficiently broad that in terms of engagement with some of the other arts functions within the council, it is the primary governance body for discussions about how Nelson continues to be a regional city leading in the area of the creative arts. Councillor Pakipaki.
Darth Vader is now in the room. Mr. Mayor, just I had a question asked of me late last night. I brought it up in our workshop the other day, and it's in particular about the absence of a Māori liaison for the community. It was mentioned to me at the time, of course, that we have the Kotahitanga partnership agreement with our iwi, but that, of course, does not represent the Māori community. And the question was who is actually the formal acknowledgement of that role? Is that by default the Māori ward, because it's clearly not listed on this here?
It's a good question, and it is quite a deliberate choice by me. The point that is repeatedly made by iwi, quite appropriately, is that our relationship with them is one of a partnership, not one of consultation. And so it is a special and higher ranked relationship than the liaison roles.
So that relationship exists within our partnership arrangement. Absent from that and excluded from that conversation is the rest of the Māori community, which constitutes over half of the Māori population in here in Nelson and in Te Tauihu. So I think that was why the question was asked to me.
Yeah.
And that was by an iwi representative too, the cultural managers. So on behalf of my wife, who is Mata Waka, who is not represented who is not represented by iwi or any of those forums at all, she is excluded from acknowledgement of that there is a significant part of our community there.
But here's the piece, and look, I'm very happy if it would make the role clearer, and that is if you take the very large wards of Stoke and City, it is unclear. I live in Nelson North, I'm in Cable Bay, I've got an issue with my farm. Who do I go to, right? And the purpose of the liaison councillors would be, in this case, they would go to Lisa as the liaison councillor for that Nelson North rural area. With respect to our Māori community, I don't need to do that because, in my view, it is absolutely implicit in your role as the Māori ward councillor that for Te Matu Waka, for our Māori community, I openly respect it. Now, if you would prefer...
With respect, Mr. Mayor, actually, I'll let Finis go. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I know where you're heading.
Yeah. But if you would prefer that I also listed, and I've listed Matty as the liaison councillor for the Pacific and ethnic communities, if you would like me to add specifically under the community liaison roles, Maori community, Councillor Pakipaki, I'd be very happy to do
I
so.
think that would be good because the question that was posed to me was, are we just part of the ethnic communities?
You are not.
No,
No.
that was the question.
In fact, the language that I chose for Matty's role was very deliberate in respect of Pacific and ethnic communities. Now, I take your advice. I see you as the primary advisor for this governance around Maori issues. If you think it would better serve the Maori community to specifically list Maori community, Councillor Kahu Pakipaki, because this is the information that will be transferred onto the website and the like, I would welcome adding it. The reason I did not was I thought it might belittle the role, not because I didn't think you would be doing it.
Yeah, and I think it goes in combination with when we affirmed our position and declared our commitment that we are there for the whole community. I know the Māori ward is very separate, but I think it will attend to some of the grumblings that I've had thrown through. And also, keep in mind, not all of the Māori community are part of the Māori community.
I understand.
Or involved in that. So that this would be a good
Subject to
acknowledgement
the
of that.
second of being comfortable, I would like to add Maori communities and specifically and what it does is it just reinforces in the communications the important role our Maori ward councillor has. So is the second comfortable with it?
That needs to be spelled correctly.
Yeah. Any other questions on the report? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it might be because I'm sitting in her old seat. I'd imagine she'd be asking where does forestry and or even climate fit into these roles, or how do we? Because I'd imagine if she was here, she'd be quite fiercely pushing the forestry transition and oversight. And yeah,
Right. So a really good question because it is a big change. Is the oversight of the long-term plan decisions to transition out of commercial forestry. I think the Chief Executive had a chat with the retired Councillor Sanson about that. I'm picking up a huge level of confidence in the appointment our Chief Executive has made in our Forestry Manager. I would see the oversight of that forestry role sitting within the bounds of which of those committees. It was listed at the workshop yesterday.
Yes. 2 seconds. It's under. We get this right. This is new. Strategy and planning. Yeah.
So the strategy and planning will have the oversight of the of that strategy. Then the second part of it is in terms of the commercial part of the forestry industry. Just for clarity, Councillor Skeggs, when I refer to your role being in marine and manufacturing, that also includes effectively that industrial part of the economy. So the commercial forestry industry, whether it be 141 and those players that have got substantive forest interests, is part of, that's the business private sector part of the forestry would meet within his liaison roles. On climate change, the discussion that I've had with Mayor King is that there is strong interest from Tasman in forming a joint climate change group, and so that will come through in the recommendations, as of course transport is a huge issue, and that will be included in those joint recommendations that I hope to bring in December.
Probably just worth me adding, I did meet with Councillor Sanson just before she left, and look, she'd obviously been on council, and one of the major areas of advocacy was around that forestry space, and look, and she was advocating for very strong governance, but she was really excited with the appointment of Dr. James and made it really clear to me that she was very happy with. In fact, she said to me, "Don't let governance get involved. Let Dr. James get on with it because he knows what he's talking about." Now, that's not the right approach. We actually do need some governance oversight, and KJ and we'll be working with the oversight committee in that space. But Rachel Sanson was very, very excited about where we're taking that right trees transition.
Are there any other questions for myself around the recommendations in this governance space? Can I just draw your attention to the amended map? And the map has been amended on the geographical boundaries of those areas to take into account the refinement around the Port Hills and that change of names for those areas. And there was also a slight change, Councillor Rollo, with respect to the map, just making plain that all of the Te Hunanui Airport Reserve, including the Spit, is technically within your area, and just making plain that effectively the Jenkins Creek Channel is the boundary between Te Hunanui and the Nayland Monaco areas.
Good clarification.
It's just to make it easy. It is the intention to put the map up on the website. So if I'm a member of the public and I want to know where do I connect, oh yeah, there's the person aligned to those areas. All right, Councillor Anderson.
Sorry, just last one. Pacifica and ethnic communities. I'm fine with it, but I'm old. I wouldn't mind talking to Culture Conversations and Multicultural Nelson around the terminology of ethnic, and because things change and people take meaning from, and I understand where they're coming from. So I would like to have a chat with those communities and say, would you like a different? No.
Yeah. I understand that, and if you had a refinement of the name that is still clear about the role, it is quite deliberate to specifically name the Pacific communities. It is my view in New Zealand, our Maori community are our treaty partner. The Pacific communities, in my view, is that there is a special relationship by geography with them. And so more than happy if there was some refinement of the term ethnic, but I would like to keep the word Pacific in there just to reinforce the importance of that Pacific community of which our country has a very distinct relationship.
It's quite interesting, Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt, because ethnic is not a word that they refer to themselves as. That is a term that other groups refer to them. So it would be good, to do exactly what Maddie said, get that conversation going.
The reason for the choice of language was that is the name of the government ministry that deals with and it's effectively our Indian, our Chinese, our Pakistani, our Nepalese, our
and I wonder who names that communities.
But look, let me signal, and this applies to others with their role. This is my best recommendations on the roles. If anybody who's taking these up come along several months down the track and say to me, I'd like to refine the name because it would be a better description, look, I'm more than happy with that. And if Matty, you've got an improved name in that area, I've got a very open mind. That being the case, I will move from the chair the resolutions that are listed on our agenda, numbered 1 to 22. There has been no comment, but it is worthwhile for me just to, for public purposes, inherent in this governance model is a intent that our councillors will be doing a similar workload and that they will be equally sharing the remuneration pool. I will put on record, because I'm not affected, the pool and the amount that is paid to councillors barely would meet the minimum wage if I took the number of hours that I know councillors put into their roles. The fact that no councillor has raised the issue just reinforces to me what I know, in that is every person around this table is committed to their role as a councillor based on the community service of which the remuneration that is being agreed today is a small part of what really motivates them to be part of the governance table. Councillor Rainey?
Just got a wee clarification on the map, man, if
Yeah, sure.
you could. You've listed, it's listed on the map Central Nelson Airport. That's not a separate liaison.
Correct. So let me
You might
just
want to
be,
give clarification there.
let me be quite clear. All of the residential areas of Nelson have a liaison councillor. I've excluded the CBD, and the reason I've excluded the CBD is the Deputy Mayor has responsibility for the City Revitalisation Task Force. Councillor Courtney has a role as the retail and commercial sector, and so the intent behind that is any issues that relate to that area will either relate to your role as chair of the Vitalisation Task Force or Mel's in the retail area. With respect to the Port Hill, the port area, that area is very much Nigel's responsibility. There are no residential homes in that part of the map, and so his marine responsibility. I think for clarity, the Deputy Mayor is correct, and I'd like those words removed off the map.
Yeah.
Because I think that they create confusion when it is a map setting out the liaison areas. So if we can just please note removal of the words Central, Nelson and Port, because it'll only confuse the public in the establishment of the liaison roles. The Deputy Mayor happy to second?
Yes.
It is now open to debate. And for terms of the debate, I just simply reinforce the very constructive way that colleagues have engaged in putting this governance structure together. I'm excited about how it aligns with the shaping our future. I think it sets us up well to serve our community for the next 3 years. The further thing I'd acknowledge is I welcome the suggestion from the Deputy Mayor and others that there be that 12 months review because it's important that it works, and I am totally committed to kicking the tyres on it in 12 months' time after we've seen how we work and to make further refinements to ensure it works well. The floor is Councillor Skinners.
You know, it was more than commentary, but hey, thank you, and I appreciate what you've done, Nick and team and staff, because that must be a balancing act to jigsaw that puzzle through, and I think you've done pretty well there. I also appreciate, I think it's, we do have very good relationships with our senior staff, but I think that we even reinforce that further with those connections as committees with staffs and the particular oversights we're in. And just going back to your Pacific liaison role, I think, that is very important. I often think of us as New Zealand, a southern Pacific island, and Oceania, Pacific Rim is very important geologically, geographically, politically, and where each of us ethnic roots come from, and not just in sporting circles. So in that sense, when the going gets tough, Pacific Island, Australasia become one in all sorts of situations. So hey, I commend that, but each of the roles play a very important part you've got there. Hey, also just want to reflect on councils of the past, and as Nick, you pointed out, how we're reimbursed or not reimbursed, and people are quite rightly, those who stand for council and also staff are very passionate about Nelson, and it's really not so much how we get out of it, but what we can give back. But I also reflect on not so long ago, councillors, and I admire them, maybe this has changed since then, but they would have a full-time job on the building site, on the farm, at their retail shop, and then they'd turn up at 7 o'clock at night after a full day's work to run the city. And that was completely voluntary. I don't believe they got remunerated at all for that. And that's not so long ago. And I still bounce off my ideas or thoughts of some of those older councillors of the past. But I just wanted to just make note of that. And I do understand, it's a big role at the moment for council, mayor, etc. And it's a role that you couldn't afford to do unless you have a business and a supporting, or a work or job and a supporting family to do this role. And I also commend the staff. I've been obviously in a number of terms, but what I keep reminding people is how our job's made far more straightforward. You turn up, your diary's provided, your pen and paper's provided, and you're able just to focus on your decision making here. And that can be quite a change from when you're running your own business, where you're always trying to balance your diary, balance your time, balance your resources. So on that side, it's commend. But I just want to spend a little moment just to thank those councillors before us who ran, like I said, full-time jobs, run families, and were being here from 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night, running the city. I'm not saying we should be running till 10 o'clock at night, so don't take me wrong. But hey, I think that, so that was all it was just to support, just a commentary to support today and the past and the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Skinner. Any other contributions? Councillor Austin.
Yeah, hi. I just want to thank Mayor Nick for his time, and it mustn't have been an easy task to put us and juggle us all and put us into our areas. However, I didn't get everything I wanted, but I thank him for what he's done. And I also want to thank Aaron Stallard for passing over Nelson North to me, and I think it's a great honour, and I'll try and carry on your great work. I heard really good things out there when I was talking to the community about you, Aaron. So thank you. Yeah, that's just what I want to say.
Thanks, Councillor Austin. Any other comments? Councillor Pakipaki.
Kia ora, Mr Mayor. Could I get the first motion of closure for this term?
Setting a wonderful precedent. I think Councillor Pakipaki is guilty of grovelling to the Chief Executive. When he looked at today's agenda, he says that I have to buy him champagne if I'm not at 3 o'clock. I'm going to take the hint. Unless there are any other contributions that people would like to make, let's make progress and put the resolutions. Would that be with the, I think, where the mood of the...
Did he actually put it? Did you actually?
I'll second it, your
I have to take the motion of closure. All those in favour of the closure I need a second. And Councillor Courtney is going to move the seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, say no. The motion is closed. I shall put it. All those in favour of resolutions 1 to 22 for establishing the governance structure for the training ahead, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. That is carried. I thank colleagues. As is my practice, we'll take a quick 5-minute break. Council will resume at 10:05. second paper with respect to the reappointment of trustees for the Nelson Civic Trust, and welcome Martin Croft to the committee table.
Kia ora koutou, Morena. As has been said by the Mayor, this is to reappoint 3 trustees to the Nelson Civic Trust, as recommended by the Trust at their annual general meeting. I do have to let you know of one amendment that was required, and I will have to apologise to Scott when I see him. Scott Tambasari isn't listed as a member of the Trust on this report and needs to be on there. He is the newest member of the Trust. And so, that needs to be amended, but the rest of the report remains the same, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from colleagues with respect to the reappointment of Jeremy, Kathy and Glenn to the Civic Trust? That being the case, is a colleague prepared to move the reappointment? Thank you, Councillor Courtney, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
That is carried. Can I just ask for Council's indulgence? I've received an apology from Councillor Sarah Kirby. She's stuck with Nelson Airport being closed with fog in Wellington. She would have liked to have got the message through earlier, but apparently has been having telephone troubles. I'd like to move from the chair the acceptance of an apology, seconded by Councillor Paki. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. We come to the report of the survey, the resident survey, and welcome Louis. I think the timing of the presentation of the survey report right at the beginning of the term, getting a taking of the temperature of where our residents is actually a very useful entree as the organisation moves to its new structure and our council starts a new term. In your good hands, Louis, for you to take us through the report.
Well, tēnā koutou katoa. I'll briefly introduce the item, then happy to answer questions. So firstly, there's no changes to the report since the agenda was distributed. Secondly, the additional benchmarking analysis that was circulated to elected members is tabled at the meeting. I've got some extra copies there for the community and media. And that will be included in the minutes attachment. So a summary of the benchmarking is outlined at paragraphs 11 to 13 of the staff report. And I'll touch on a few points in a moment. So next, from a project point of view, it was a success. We achieved a statistically robust set of results based on our survey methodology with an overall margin of error of plus or minus 4.4% at the 95% confidence level. There's more details outlined at page 3 of the results report, which is page 77 of the agenda. In terms of the survey results, they provide an important snapshot of community sentiment and with other engagement and feedback, contribute to improved understanding of community views. It was pleasing to see a steady perception and satisfaction with council's overall performance, with the 59% satisfaction being in the top 4 results of the last 15 years. Also, there's key findings from the detailed report highlighted in the staff report, such as areas with high satisfaction, lower satisfaction, or areas of community concern. Moving on to the benchmarking analysis, Nelson was again the highest scoring council for satisfaction with overall performance from the 21 city and district councils that are surveyed by Key Research. In terms of other measures, council had mixed results ranging from the top performer, above average, through to below average, most of which were consistent with the results from the prior year, 23-24. And then finally, following today, staff will publish the results report on the website for the community.
Thank you for the report, and I was hugely heartened, particularly the benchmarking and the comparison with other councils. For us to be, relative to other councils, at the top end on over 6 measures, I thought was a very positive achievement. Can I just ask the first question, and that is the one area that always causes dissatisfaction is the cleanliness of our public toilet facilities. As mayor, I actually make an effort of checking out the public toilets, although I don't misunderstand in terms of understanding how well they are kept, and actually find them in pretty good nick. What I was looking for is it just that is sort of a perennial issue for the public wherever you are in the country around how clean our public toilets are? Or is there any way of us being able to compare the cleanliness state of maintenance of our public toilet facilities with comparable councils? I'm trying to work out, do we have a problem, or is it right across other councils? So was there a comparative figure with the other councils that use key research about the public satisfaction on state toilets?
Thank you. Through the chair. Traditionally, it is a lower scoring measure across councils. In the benchmarking analysis, the top performer was a 78% satisfaction, but other facilities would be up to 90% as a top performer. For instance, we've got libraries at 94% for other councils. So it shows even the highest performance for public toilets is lower. The average was 56% across the 21, with our council scoring 51. So we were below average for that one. To delivery or other staff who might be able to give other data, not based on sentiment.
I would be interested, and Councillor Skinner, for your committee when you get up and running next year, I wouldn't mind just a little bit of a scrutiny. I like being above average. We are below average. I wouldn't mind a bit of scrutiny. Is it a cleanliness issue or is it a maintenance issue, and how we might be able to get ourselves better compared to others in that area. Other questions from colleagues? Councillor Courtney.
I have several that I can ask Officer Louis, but I won't indulge. With these surveys, does the respondent numbers vary from survey to survey? I mean, and in the case of the size of the city, I'm thinking of a larger city, does the number of respondents sort of increase, and is there some sort of gauge there? I'm getting the question of how many respondents were involved in this one, and does it vary from survey to survey? That's
thank you. Through the chair, for Nelson, we have a minimum 400 respondents must be included in the sample, and they seek a larger sample to get representation across the community, then weighted to census distributions. So for this survey, it was, I think, 471 is included in the sample. That's what provides you that margin error and confidence level. I think for surveys or market research companies, they would say 400 is still a very high standard. 400 above is what they seek. Some of our sample that we are compared against, I would have to go back to the provider. Some of them will be of a similar, they may be larger samples. Other councils, say for instance, the quality of life surveys that some metropolitan city councils do, I believe they seek larger samples, but then that's across the whole country.
I'll have another one while others think.
Sure.
Louis, is there a standout result there? A standout result that you were quite surprised with? Is there one particular?
Through the chair, I wouldn't say I was surprised. I think it was a great result to see a lot of steady or improved perception. I think the provider does analyse the against significance testing.
Yes.
Some significant improvements. I just have to refer I believe I have it in my notes. Some of them were. One moment. Thank you through the chair. So the Nelson Waste Recovery Centre had a significant increase to 70%, as did the Three Waters Infrastructure Services, significant increase up to 57%. So those were large, over 10% increases for both of them.
Councillor Anderson, happy to take further questions, Mel, if you wish. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. With the methodology and the selection of questions, were there any topics or questions that staff would have liked included in the survey which weren't?
Thank you. Through the chair, for this sample between the 23 and 24 through to the 24-25, we kept the question set exactly the same. So that's helpful for trend data. So the surveys were based on feedback from staff prior. So we didn't reach out specifically for that period to add questions.
And I was just wondering, with the, they say hyper-aging community, and just looking at some of the data and the number of respondents, I was wondering, does it get weighted as far as, so, most of our guys are in a certain demographic, and to get a picture of what the community as a unit needs, is that done?
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes, excellent question. Because the provider seeks as large a sample as possible, they then, within that sample, will look for as representative a sample as possible to reflect demographics. Then, following that stage, they will weight the results to match the census 2023 demographic distributions to ensure that they've got good representation on age, ethnicity, and gender.
Louis, I have a question around, I understand that we do this survey in 4 batches, is it, per year? If council wished to make changes in questions, I know key research, and it's very helpful, one of the most helpful portions of the report is comparing us to the other 21 councils that use key research. What's our capacity to be able to bring in a new question or area?
Thank you. Through the chair. Further topics or questions can be added. The process is worked through with the provider to ensure that the question is designed to meet the standards needed for a survey. So we don't specifically set the wording. We'll work with the provider on that. So within Nelson, there's the ability, subject to budget and contract, however, for benchmarking or comparison, the provider can, of course, only benchmark on common measures. So if we add that don't match what other councils ask, we won't get that comparison.
Be quite open with my elected colleagues. The question that I would like to see us ask is, do you think council is providing good value for money? Now, we may be afraid of getting a negative response, but I actually think it's a really important question for us to understand. Because there's one issue about how much I pay in my rates, but it's also satisfying them that for the rates that they pay, that they get good value for money. Now, it's not for us to resolve. We're just receiving a report today, but I'd be really interested. And also the other part for me is, I suspect if we ask the question, and I might be being overly pessimistic, that you might not necessarily get the best response, but I'm then interested in tracking it, and both through actions and in terms of how we tell the story, improving public satisfaction that we are giving them good value for money for the nearly $4,000 a year the average household pays in rates.
Happy to talk to that, Mr. Mayor. We are receiving the report today, but certainly the SLT will be looking at the next iterations and thinking about other questions, and I'm more than happy to take that feedback on board, subject to lots of nodding around the council. To answer Councillor Courtney's question, the most important thing from my perspective is that consistency. So I'm really keen to keep the consistent questions from survey to survey to survey to see how we're going. There's a temptation to change questions every now and then, but then you don't get that sort of benchmarking or the consistency of the questions. So I'm really keen to keep the existing questions, but to add a question on value for money would be really timely from my perspective as chief executive. Shaping our future is all about value for money and ensuring we're building an organisation that does think about every single cent that the ratepayer gives us and the way we spend it. And I'm building an organisation that's focusing very much on value for money, and therefore a benchmark from the public perception right now, and to see how we do over the next 5 years or so would be valuable for me as a chief executive. So happy to ask the SLT to look into that.
Councillor Brand.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, on page, well, it's 101 of our report, but it's page 27 of the survey thing, where it talks about the breakdown of facilities, sports grounds, swimming pools, libraries, and all of those. It comes down into location, and it talks about play facilities and swimming pools have declined in Stoke. Was there any feedback as to the reason behind that, or I've sort of got an idea of what I think it is. I just want to see if they fed that in.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes, it is page 27. There's a reference to declines in the Stoke area for satisfaction. Also, there's theming on the next page, which relates to overall. So we would have to go to the provider to see if they could give us a breakdown specifically for Stoke commentary, but this broader commentary reflects about more play facilities, facilities for kids, better and safer playgrounds. Would have to dig in with the provider for more information.
Because I am aware that some of the play spaces they felt were not age appropriate or would be taken away, rubbish bins, and therefore there's a lot of litter and stuff left over, so they don't find the same enjoyment or safety, health and safety for those spaces. But also too, because we didn't implement the upgrades to our swimming pools based on our aquatic facility strategic plan that we did last term, and we didn't change, and some incidences that have been happening at the Nayland pool specifically with the changing rooms. I'm just wondering if that was the stuff that fed in, because that's stuff that we could address through the long-term plan when that comes up.
I think there's lots of good intel in here of the sort that Councillor Brand has highlighted that as our committees get underway to drill into. Councillor Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor Nick. Officer Louis, I'm just curious to know, does the number of questions that are asked at each of the surveys every quarter, does the number of questions vary? And does the initiative have to come from us for those to vary? And what is the number?
Thank you. I think there's a few questions I'll have to answer there. Through the chair, the questions do not vary per quarter. We try to keep a set number of questions. Secondly, in terms of the number, I can answer that. It's slightly complicated that we have.
What is about near 30, and I would wonder whether there's a sort of the professionals would recommend a certain number and not above that and that type of thing.
Yes, so through the chair, it's 23 questions, but 9 of which are multi-part, and then there's sub questions, so it does create quite a few layers. The general view is because this is able to do online, it provides more flexibility for when a participant can respond, but you don't want to go above 15 minutes to complete a survey if you can. You know, once you go longer than that, the respondent has to have quite a bit of time and commitment to go through a longer survey, so you do want to cap the questions. And finally, in terms of variation to the questions, if there was substantive change sought, the themes or topics would be discussed with elected members. The specific question structure is brought to SLT as the CE explained.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks again, Louis, for your work. Some really good feedback there. I find this information invaluable as governance in terms of understanding where our council is doing well. Is someone prepared to move the adoption of the report? I'll take Councillor Skinner, seconded by Councillor Brand. The brief comments that I would make would be, this survey shows nationally an increased level of grumpiness with councils. Why? Because the overall level of satisfaction across New Zealand in council services dropped from 44% to 41%. I think that reflects the overall economic mood, where actually people are doing it tough and are feeling the pressures, particularly around things like cost of living, as well as councils need to take it on board about how we need to do better. What makes me incredibly proud as mayor of this organisation is that where the average was 41% satisfaction, we were at 59%. And not only is that a very strong comparison and the best of the 21 councils surveyed, but actually historically compared to previous surveys as about as good as we have got. That's not to take away from the challenge that we should aim to do better. I was hugely encouraged by the fact that there are 6 areas of which we were rated by our residents as the very best of the 21. And I hope the Chief Executive will highlight to those managers in the area our encouragement by the scale of their work that has them delivering services that are so satisfactory. The last point I would make is there are some areas, likes of the cleanliness and maintenance of toilets, the issue that Councillor Brand assigned, and some others, where it highlights where we are below average performance. And that is a challenge for us going forward as we prioritise our resources with an ambition to do better across the board. The very last point is I would like staff to consider a value for money question, because that's one of the other things. Is I'm satisfied with the level of service. I think that in the current environment and long term of wanting to satisfy our ratepayers, that we're doing them really good value for money. The only other little piece I'd add on to it is this stuff absolute gospel? It's like any survey result. Do I think the average householder or ratepayer understands the quality of their sewage main going down their street or the state of maintenance of the other infrastructure we have? They're more likely to be influenced by a headline or a paper. And so, for instance, it's obvious that an issue like fluoridation has been controversial and has impacted on people's perceptions of water services. And while it's a guide, as a governance unit, it is just that. And we need to make sure that our decisions that are made on those more technical questions are driven by our professional advice rather than just survey and polling results that are useful but not the only driver. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mayor Nick. I'd just like to say I think it's a very interesting report and encouraging in a lot of ways, but there's no one area showing up as a total disaster or declining. The one that caught my attention was the transport, and particularly the public transport result there. It showed that just over 50% of the respondents hadn't travelled by public transport, hadn't used our new e-bus service. And this signals surely to us and to the Regional Transport Committee that there is an opportunity there for further custom, and we mustn't ever slacken in that regard of trying to build that business up. So I think the joint committee of the regional transport should consider advertising, should try and incentivise more to attract patrons to the service, particularly young people who are going to be the customers of the future. And there are many sorts of programs or promotions that could be used, and I would like to see them become very active in this area so that people are encouraged to get on and try the service. I did suggest at one stage for young people it could be Freebie Friday and have a Friday free for a certain age group of our youth. But any program that entice people just to try the service, to sell the service, sell its benefits, and the reasonable price that's charged as well. So, I mean, there is an opportunity there, no question about it as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks, Councillor Courtney. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. If you ask me what our biggest strategic issue is as a community, and many of us are talking about it, it's our ageing demographics. If you look at our benchmarking, our worst performing area when we compare against other councils is our public swimming pools and our aquatic facilities. Then it's our playgrounds, then it's our libraries, and then it's our public toilets. In my eyes, it's go figure. The question I would be asking us, particularly as we look forward and look at the long-term plan, is what are we going to do about it?
Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thanks. It's a really good report and it's good news, but I was thinking that and a lot of people say this too shall pass. And I feel that, you know, sometimes when we're doing our job, it's not like it's been a lot of hard and good work, but I just got to be confident that, you know, at this table, sometimes you got to make decisions which aren't popular and which are the right decisions. So I'm just prepping yourself. And I agree with Councillor Hodgson, but it's a two-edged sword. You know, we're looking towards how we're going to support our ageing population. And on Sunday, I was at Remembrance Day talking to all the youth, and they're all buggering off. And I'm very supportive of that, but they all did mention, look, there's nothing for us to do here. So, yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Stella.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I think this is really valuable information because it is a scientific poll with a margin of error. In that way, it's different from a consultation feedback, which is useful in itself, but does contain bias because it oversamples people who are highly motivated or find their process accessible and so on. So I think we should pay attention to these surveys, and I'd like to just touch on a few points that are relevant to the presentation we had today in the public forum by Peter and Lindsay, where they did talk about, you know, don't fear taking action because there is good, strong public support for climate environmental measures. And I sort of think the results show that the community does distinguish between what's important and what can happen from local government as opposed to central government. So to turn to the survey, I think there are three things that stood out to me. The first was that, once again, same as last survey, the communities told us that the most important activity of council is looking after the environment. Number one, same as last time. Paired with that, the area of work that is this greatest dissatisfaction is addressing climate change. And beyond that, when it comes to what council can be doing to address climate change, the number one activity that the community suggests is leading projects to reduce community emissions. So when we put all that together, the community's told us via the scientific poll, it's not just sort of interest groups and so on. The most important activity that we undertake is looking after the environment. The greatest dissatisfaction is our slow progress on addressing climate change, and that we should be leading projects to reduce community emissions. As we go into the annual plan and long-term plan and start to implement the strategy that we adopted in July, feels like years ago now, we can take heart from the kind of information that's in the survey that there is a strong community expectation that we will take positive action in protecting and restoring the environment, that we need to move faster on climate action, and that we should be extending our gaze into community emissions, not just our own emissions. I think we can bear that in mind and know we will be supported if we communicate well and take the community with us in undertaking that work.
Thanks, Councillor Stella. Other contributions? That being the case, I shall put the resolution noting the 24-25 resident survey. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. We come to item 8 on the agenda for the purposes of excluding the public, noting the section 48(1) of the Local Government Act and the reasons for doing so. I'm going to move that resolution in the name of the chair. It's happy for the Deputy Mayor to second. I shall put that resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. That is carried. We'll just take a 2-minute break to allow the press to depart, and then we'll move to the